Welcome to the CouchScouts Podcast. We provide league-winning analysis, advice, and tools to help you dominate your league and build a dynasty. Scout, draft, win. Here's your host, Matt Cooper.
Welcome to the CouchScouts Podcast. We are continuing our Inside the Prospect series. I'm your host, Matt Cooper. With me is my co-host, Matt Rupert.
How's it going?
And Matt Jackson, who is muted.
Go Birds!
Go Birds. There you go. Jackson is our resident Eagles fan. Currently wearing a different Eagles jersey than the one he was wearing at my house on Sunday night when he and his family drove 2 hours down here to watch the game and then all the way back. What time did you get home, Jackson?
Dude, it was like 12:45 when we were pulling up in our driveway. Our kids were passed out. They were not happy that we woke them up and brought them inside. But it was well worth it. A nice spur-of-the-moment decision to just drive to your house and watch us bring home our second Super Bowl.
Yeah, man. It was a lot of fun. We enjoyed having you guys. Like I mentioned, on tonight's podcast, we're going to be continuing our Inside the Prospect series. Tonight, we are going to be discussing Jayden Higgins, wide receiver out of Iowa State. But before we do that, we've got a little bit of an announcement to make, and I'm really excited about this one. So this week, we have a new podcast that is going to be airing on our podcast channel, on our network, almost every week, probably as often as we can do it. But for those that don't know, I have also been doing a regular weekly podcast on the Rookie Big Board Network called the Devi Big Board with my good friend Skip Newton. And as Couch Scouts has continued to grow, I was kind of reevaluating that time commitment. And first of all, thank you to Matt Hicks for inviting me to do that for all those years. And it was a great experience. I loved being part of that team. And he's got a fantastic brand over there. So definitely check out the Rookie Big Board if you haven't already. But as I was reevaluating that time commitment, what I kind of realized was I really need to be given every minute of fantasy football time that I can spare in my schedule between a full-time job and 2 young kids and the whole thing to helping grow Couch Scouts. And so I wanted to reallocate that time. And I asked my co-host, Skip Newton, because I love podcasting with him. And I said, hey, would you be willing to add a second show into your routine? And let's keep podcasting on Wednesday nights, but let's do it on the Couch Scouts Network. And he said, yes. So thank you, Skip, for saying yes. And I'm really excited. So those, I think, are going to be posting Friday mornings. So keep an eye out. We'll still continue to do our every Tuesday night show, but we're going to be adding a Friday morning release of me and Skip. And we're going to call that the Couch GM podcast because really what we say is a GM can't do his job without good scouts, but scouting is only half the battle. So the Couch GM podcast with me and Skip, while this one on Tuesday nights has been so focused on just kind of the granular level of film analysis and observations and what do we see about this player, what do we see about that player, the one with Skip's going to be more strategic, dynasty strategy, buys, sells, startup draft strategy, reacting to news. You know, we'll discuss, we'll do a lot of trade talk on that show. So yeah, it'll be more on the managerial side of managing a dynasty roster. And I'm really, really excited about it. So keep an eye out for that. It's going to be releasing Friday mornings, starting this week. Actually, we're going to record our first episode tomorrow night and probably post it Friday morning. So that won't be a live show, but we'll record it and post it every week. So
I'm super excited about it. This kind of feels full circle for me a little bit.
Yeah, you used to podcast with Skip years ago.
Podcasting feet wet with Skip on a show called the Devi Happy Hour, part of the Dynasty Happy Hour podcast feed. So like it's full circle for me to have a podcast on the air back with Skip again. Like I'm excited for us. Like that's awesome.
Yeah, man, you'll have to join me and Skip sometime. I know he's looking forward to podcasting with you again as well. So let's get into it. Like I said, tonight's episode, we're going to be discussing Jayden Higgins. He's a wide receiver out of Iowa State. The official measurements that he took at the Senior Bowl last week were 6'3" and 213 pounds. So he's a big boy. He's a senior, was the 459th ranked wide receiver in his recruiting class, so not very high in the rankings. Was a two-star prospect. Started his career at Eastern Kentucky before eventually transferring to Iowa State. And this year at Iowa State, he went for 87 receptions, 1,183 receiving yards with 9 receiving touchdowns. So that's a pretty good statistical year. And we're going to get into it. He's a name that's gotten a good bit of buzz. Obviously, 6'3", 213 is a size height weight ratio that catches people's attention. He had by all accounts a pretty good week at the Senior Bowl. We talked about that on our last podcast. So if you haven't yet, we did a Senior Bowl recap last week with Mike Anthony, our good friend from Dynasty Dog. So definitely check that episode out. But yeah, Jayden Higgins, he's definitely a name that is going to be relevant in your drafts. He's going to get drafted at some point in your rookie draft. I feel pretty confident in that. So we need to talk about him. And we're going to get into the film and say whether he's a prospect that we think you should be interested in or not. And as always, we go trait by trait, and we start at the wide receiver position always with release and route running. We watch multiple games of all 22 film at dynastynerds.com. You can use promo code COOP for 15% off if you want to check that out. That's where we do all of our film study, and we take some pretty extensive notes, and then we come in here together on the show and compare what we saw. So I'm excited to hear what you guys saw about Jayden Higgins. We'll start with the release and the route running, and I'll send it over to you first, Jackson. What did you see from release and route running for Jayden Higgins?
One of the most interesting things that I think I noted about Jayden Higgins was at 6'3", 213 pounds, you don't reckon somebody as big-bodied as he is should be able to run routes and have a release package that he has. Just phenomenal release, early quickness, just some real twitchiness in his routes. I noticed really sinks his hips well, gets out well at the top of his breaks. Just is able to get inside and outside leverage. He's got a really complete release package. I gave him an 8.5. And honestly, I was thinking of even bumping that up to a 9. I just really enjoyed his release package a lot. And he ran some really great routes. Like I said, able to sink his hips well, able to just be crisp at the stem of his routes. This was probably one of the best areas on his game film for me was his release and route running. And that was a little unexpected for somebody that's as big-bodied and is a big alpha receiver like he is.
Yeah, so not to disregard everything else that you said, but I love that you said reckon. It's like your southern drawl just came out. I don't reckon a guy that big.
It snuck in for a second.
I love it. But yeah, great observations, Rupert. What did you notice there from the release and the route running?
Yeah, pretty much in lockstep there. I was quite surprised, to be honest. He sinks his hips really well and can stop for a comeback route or a hitch and curl very well for his size. That was something that was very impressive. And another thing I really liked, he lined up at all 3 positions, put him in the slot, put him on the left side of the formation, right side of the formation, no matter where it was, he could run routes from. So I think he's going to translate very well in this category.
Yeah, so we're all in lockstep on that. I had him at a 9 for his release and an 8 for route running. So I was also very pleasantly surprised in this area for being as big as he was. He was so crisp coming in and out of his breaks. He would get to the stem of the route, kind of chop his feet, give a head nod, and then snap off in the other direction. And he was creating a lot of separation over the middle of the field. Short to intermediate game, he was fantastic. He was, to give a 9 in press coverage, release against press, I just thought he had a really diverse release package with his footwork, with his hand fighting. Pretty much every time they pressed him, he got wherever he wanted to go. If he wanted inside leverage, he got there. If he wanted outside leverage, he would get guys on his back immediately and be in total control for the rest of the route. So his release was really nice. And again, like you guys noted, the ability to sink his hips and change directions at that size laterally and create like horizontal separation was really good. So we're off to a good start, Jayden Higgins. I was consider all of us pleasantly surprised with this super crucial area of the game. But continuing on down the list here, our next trait that we always talk about with wide receivers is ball skills. So a receiver's first job is to get open. We just talked about that. His second job is to catch the dang ball. So whether you're open, how reliable are your hands? Are you dropping it? Whether you're in contested situations, do you have kind of the physicality to create separation at the catch point? How's your catch radius? Are you tall, long arm? Body control, the ability to contort and maybe go back for a ball that's thrown behind you. Are you letting it into your body? All of those things are things that we're looking at when we talk about ball skills. What did you notice there? We'll start with you, Rupert.
We shared this in our group chat today that how rough the quarterback situation was, and it really gave him a bunch of opportunity for contested catches. The first game I watched, like I saw like 2 plays where I was like, ooh, I didn't really like that ball tracking, but those were basically like the only blips I saw. After I started watching the rest of the games, like I didn't see that anymore. So I thought his ball track was really good, especially like over the shoulder. He was good in contested catch situations, and I thought his hands were quite reliable. I will say this is like not anything we score, but he seemed like a pro at getting defensive pass interference calls. He was, I don't know how many times I saw it throughout the couple games that we watched. Like I watched 3 last night before watching some this morning. I was like, it's just like PI call after PI call.
Yeah,
like,
I made the same note
on the Chiefs.
I know. I made the same note. I don't know if I've ever seen one guy draw as many defensive pass interferences as him. Like, and maybe part of it is because he had a YOLO ball guy at quarterback. Like just keep throwing it up to him, and the balls were thrown so poorly that Higgins would have to fight back through contact to kind of get to the ball that was thrown nowhere near him. And he was just drawing penalties left and right doing that. But
yeah, I will say I agree a lot with what you say, Rupert. I mean, his catch radius, I gave him an 8 for catch radius. I feel like because his quarterback was just throwing so many YOLO balls, like he was consistently throwing the ball either way high or like behind him. Like the ball was never on center frame for him to make a catch. So he had to make a lot of crazy body contortions, and he had the opportunity to make a lot of contested catches. I will disagree with one point that you said. I don't think he was great in the contested catch situation. I think I saw one in the 5 games that I watched where he came down with a contested catch that I said was catchable. Now, a lot of it was, the ball was way over his head or a defensive back got in there and like cause pass interference. But there were a lot of times where I saw him have the opportunity to make some contested catches, and he just didn't come down with the ball. Which worries me a little bit with as big as he is. Like he fights well through contact. He really does the hand fighting thing well. He just doesn't make great contested catches. And for me, it's not a hands issue because I gave him a 7 for hands. Like I thought like when he was open, like his hands were reliable. So I don't think it's a hands catching issue or an extension to the ball issue. I just think he's not great in the contested catch situation.
I completely agree with you, Jackson. When Rupert said that a minute ago, I kind of raised my eyebrows a little bit too. I had him at a 6 for contested catch, which was not what I was expecting. When you look just at the profile, 6'3", 213, I'm expecting a contested catch savant, and he was put in a lot of those situations, like we've talked about. And I agree with you. He almost never came down with the football in his hands. It was discouraging. I think because he, like you said, he would swim through contact. He would go up. He would high point the ball, and defense is kind of hanging all over him. And you're thinking, man, he just mossed this guy, and the ball would always just kind of pop out at the end. It was like he just didn't have the strength to come down. Like I don't know if it was a strength, but you know what I'm saying? It's like when he was open, he would catch it, but anytime it was contested, the ball just seemed to pop out at the end. He just wasn't coming down and actually completing the process of the catch in those situations. And I didn't quite know what to make of that because same as you, I had him at an 8 for catch radius. I had him at a 7 for body control. I didn't think that was bad. I had him at a 9 for ball tracking. The physicality was good. The hands were fine. But in those contested situations, I had the exact same note, Jackson. He just wasn't winning often
It
enough.
felt like a mixed bag because like he did everything else really, really well. Like everything that you need to be a contested catch savant, he has, except for completing the process of the catch.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's a contested catch savant. I grade him at 7.5. Two of the situations I talked about with ball tracking were like contested catch situations, but I felt like if he would have tracked the ball better, he would have, come down with those catches. So I think like when he does struggle, it was with more or less like ball tracking rather than hands issue.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, there's a big difference between 6 and 7.5. Like for me, that's a 6 is like NFL average. 7.5 is like between good and great by NFL standards. So we're pretty far off on that. I just didn't think for as big as he was that he
I had him at a
caught as
5.
many.
I had him at a 5 just because
At a
of how big,
5.
just because of how big he was. Like I don't know, like I never saw him come down with a contested catch. I was like, you're not like if I'm going to give you NFL average, you're going to come down with some of those catches, and he didn't.
Yeah, that's fair. I was tempted to put him lower myself. That was probably the biggest area of his game where I was just totally underwhelmed. But let's continue on. Before we do, got a little comment from Colin. He says, congrats on the new show announcement. Looking forward to checking it out. Thanks, Colin. We appreciate you. So number 1 job, get open. Number 2 job, catch the ball. Number 3, and this is kind of a cherry on top, it's yards after the catch. What do you do after you catch the ball? Can you create extra hidden yards, whether that be through broken tackles, making people miss, kind of the instincts to be able to catch it and quickly turn upfield with a plan in mind? So what did we notice from Jayden Higgins in terms of yak ability? I'll start with you, Jackson.
Yeah, so we talk about athleticism. This is what we're getting to, right? Is athleticism, but we want it. We've said it on the show before. We want it to be functional athleticism. And when I was watching Jayden Higgins, I think he's a knowledgeable wide receiver. Like I'm not going to say that he doesn't have yards after the catch ability because of a lack of knowing what to do with the ball in his hands. That's not where I'm getting at with this. What I do think is the problem is just some game speed issue, burst. Like it's just not there for him. I give him a 6 for game speed, 6 for burst. Like his acceleration and top end speed just isn't great. And you pair that with the fact that DB's like, yes, he runs solid routes. Like he's great at getting defenders on his hips, but he's not great at separating at that next level once he gets the defender on his hips. Like I felt like every time he caught the ball, a defender was right there with him, and he just never had the ability to shake him, and he never had the speed to create enough separation to do something after the catch. So this was not an area that I was overly impressed with him at. I get it. He's a big body receiver. That's not his game. So I'm not knocking him too bad, but he looked slow, and he didn't look like he had the functional athleticism that you want a receiver to have at the next level.
For sure. Rupert, what did you notice there?
Yeah, I don't think I'd go that far. Like I think he's a solid athlete. He's not spectacular. He's not going to wow you with his athleticism. But I think he's, solid. I gave him like a 6.5 for pretty much all those, including yak. I agree. Like most of the time, like he's catching it over the middle. Linebackers like right there, he's getting tackled. But I did see like some hitches on the outside where he'd had his back to the defender. He could kind of feel him on the inside, so he'd catch it and immediately turn outside and turn upfield. So I did see some glimpses there, but I agree. Like his not having any kind of like a elite trait or above average athleticism limited his yak ability.
Yeah, so this kind of plays in for me, not just with the yak, but also with the route running. I gave him an 8 on the route running because he was so good in the short to intermediate. I mentioned in it, at the stem of his routes, getting guys on his back, but vertical separation, non-existent. And I think it plays right into like The game speed, I had him at a 6. The burst, I had him at a 6. I actually had him at a 7 for quickness, again, because he snapped off his routes really well and he changed directions in his routes to create separation. And so I had him at a 7 for the lateral quickness, but just very average at best in the speed and the burst. And like you said, I had him at a 9 for release against press coverage. And there's so many of those like go routes and posts and those types of like deep, long developing routes where he would win right off the line of scrimmage, have the guy on his back, and then create no separation off of it because he just didn't have the speed to create. So he was creating tons of horizontal separation, no vertical separation. That's why for me, the route running is an 8 when it could have been, a 9 or like really spectacular if he had that vertical element to his game. So the yak was a 6. I just, when you're 6'3", 212, you've got to be a really special athlete to be an after the catch guy at that size. And he's just not. So, it was mostly catch it, get tackled. There really wasn't a lot that he's not a guy that you're going to be throwing it to on screens or handing him reverses or trying to find ways to get the ball in his hands. Because most of the time, as soon as he gets the ball in his hands, he's getting tackled within a couple seconds. So this was not a strength for him. And the athleticism is a pretty limiting factor in my mind. Like if he was a really good athlete at his size, maybe he wins more of those contested catches and that grade gets higher. The yak probably goes higher. The route running probably looks better. Like he could be really special if he was just a better athlete. And I think it really holds him back. So
I think that it makes it really interesting. Like when you contemplate where his spot is at the next level, right? If you're not winning vertically, if you're not a great yards after the catch guy, I at least want you to be a good contested catch guy, but he's not that either. I think he's a very specific type of receiver that is going to win and be a safety net because of his route running release. But like, he's going to have to be somebody that you pepper with targets, or else like, what's the real upside to him as a receiver? It's kind of where I'm at with him.
Yeah, so he's kind of on the spectrum somewhere between like the low end of this would be oh man, I'm drawing a blank on the name. He was at USC last year. We all kind of liked him, big bodied, short to intermediate, but really nothing deep.
Oh, was it Rice?
Yeah. Yes. Rice, Brendan Rice, Jerry's son. So like that's kind of the floor, I think. He's that type of player. The ceiling, and I don't think he's this good, but just archetype player, play style archetype, Michael Thomas, right? That possession over the middle, short to intermediate, big bodied guy that can get you on his back and just rack up the catches. I don't see him earning that kind of role in the NFL. I do think Michael Thomas is a better athlete than him. So I think that's probably a too lofty of a comp, but similar play style. The intermediate of that maybe is most likely in his range of outcomes is like Cedric Tillman.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at with him. My overall grade on Jayden Higgins is a 72.6. Which if you go to our scoring outline would put him as a flex option. I'm pretty comfortable with that. I think, he's limited in his upside, and I'm curious to see what kind of draft capital he gets. I have a hard time seeing him go before round 3. So he's probably late day 2, early day 3 type of prospect. And then it's an uphill battle to like carve out a solid part of a passing attack in the NFL. Do you guys see it similarly?
Yeah, I do. I think it's just profiles to be like a possession receiver in the NFL, which is going to earn him a spot on a team. It has to be a good landing spot for him to have any kind of fantasy upside.
He's also not the type of guy that's going to get drafted for special teams. Like some of these smaller, faster guys, like they're going to play other roles for their NFL team. He's going to be one of those guys that's just on the depth chart to play wide receiver.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be tough for him. He's going to have to really show that he's a good enough wide receiver to hang around on a roster when you're not adding anything for special teams.
Yeah, he kind of profiles to me like upside, very ceiling is wide receiver 2. Like he's a wide receiver 3 type of like maybe player in my mind. Like I don't know. When you're looking at especially in drafts right now where he's going to go, like round 3, round 4 in your rookie drafts, right? Is kind of where I see him going right now, just based on the guys that we've scouted. Like when you're looking at that, like that range, you're shooting for upside. And I just don't know personally if he has the upside that I'm like, yeah, I'm going to take a shot at him when he doesn't possess like any skill that's going to set him apart on a roster. And maybe that's just me being lower on him, but that's kind of where I'm at with it right now.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. I mean, even when you look at Cedric Tillman, I've had him hanging around on the end of a couple dynasty benches, and he had some good games for me this year when, so they traded Amari Cooper and Njoku's hurt, and it's like he kind of
all these
became
extenuating circumstances.
Right. Like when he got peppered with targets, he could produce a little bit from a fantasy perspective, but he's also not the caliber of player that an NFL team is going to want to pepper him with targets, I think. So that's kind of the rub, is that's what you need for fantasy. And I don't know if that's going to be his role at the NFL level. So let's take a quick break here to announce kind of our website. So for people who don't know, if you're new, if you're listening for the first time, CouchScouts.com. This is the #1 time of year to join the Couch Scouts family. We provide league-winning analysis and tools to help you dominate your league and build a dynasty. Rookie content is our bread and butter. We release bonus podcasts every week. So when we get off of this show, we're going to record one about Jayden Higgins' teammate, Jalen Knoll. And you're going to want to know about Jalen Knoll. So you should subscribe to the site and check out the bonus podcasts. Just for members, breaking down some of the biggest sleeper names that you need to know. We're going to be releasing our 2025 Couch Scouts Rookie Guide pretty soon, covering over 60 prospects with in-depth film analysis, grades, pre- and post-draft rankings. It is going to be the ultimate cheat sheet for dominating your rookie draft. And you can get access to all that and more at CouchScouts.com today for as low as $5 a month, or save 15% with an annual subscription. So definitely check that out. We would love to have you join. It has been awesome discussing Jayden Higgins here. Really excited to discuss his teammate on the next podcast. You guys should also check out our Discord. It's completely free. We love hanging out in there, answering questions, get trade advice. We react to news. It's a great community, almost 200 guys in the Discord. We just ran a Super Bowl Squares contest, which was a lot of fun with our membership group there. And shout out to Quinn Salmon. I don't know how you say his last name, but in the Discord, he's Psalm 3303. And shout out to him for winning some free merch with our Super Bowl Squares game. So definitely get in the Discord, join us on the website, and listen to us talk about Jalen Knoll here in just a second. So appreciate you guys giving us a listen. You can find me on Twitter/X at CouchScoutsFF. You can find Matt Jackson at DevyMatt. And you can find Matthew Rupert at MatthewRupertFF. Please leave us a rating review on whatever podcast app you're using. We appreciate y'all listening and helping other people find us. And we'll see you next week.